The doors to the United Earth Council chamber opened with a loud bang. Everyone in the room turned to look as a 7-foot-tall alien walked in. The creature had blue skin that looked like broken glass and wore a cape that dragged on the floor behind him. His head had sharp points sticking out like a crown, and his eyes glowed red in the dim light. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in the back row and tried not to smile. He had seen many aliens before, but this one looked like he was trying too hard to be scary. The alien's cape was too long and he kept stepping on it. His fancy uniform had too many medals and buttons. Jake counted at least 50 different badges, pinned to the chest piece. The alien stopped in front of the main podium and looked around the room. He held up a small device and spoke in a language that sounded like rocks falling down a mountain. The translation machine kicked in a few seconds later. "I am Ambassador Vex Thalar of the mighty Zephyrian Empire," the device said in a flat robot voice. "I come bearing a message from Emperor Zix Morthak, ruler of 847 star systems, commander of 10 million warships, and destroyer of countless worlds." President Lisa Carter sat at the main table and nodded politely. She had dealt with many alien visitors over the years. Most of them were friendly traders or curious explorers. This one seemed different. He kept puffing out his chest and making his voice deeper than it needed to be. "We welcome you to Earth, Ambassador," Lisa said. "Please share your message." Vex Thalar reached into his cape and pulled out a golden scroll. He unrolled it with great ceremony, making sure everyone could see how shiny it was. The scroll was at least 10 feet long and covered in strange writing that glowed purple. "People of Earth," he began, reading from the scroll, "your time of freedom has ended. The Zephyrian Empire has decided that your little planet will join our great family of servant worlds. You will give us all your technology. You will send us your strongest workers. You will bow down to our Emperor and thank him for allowing you to live." Dr. Ben Hughes leaned forward in his seat. He was Earth's top expert on alien behavior, and he found Vex Thalar very interesting. The alien's head crown changed colors when he spoke. It turned bright yellow when he talked about the Emperor's power. It shifted to dark green when he mentioned Earth's technology. Ben made notes in his tablet about the color changes. "If you refuse our generous offer," Vex Thalar continued, "the Emperor will send our great war fleet to destroy your world. Your cities will burn. Your people will become slaves. Your planet will be turned into a mining operation. You have one solar rotation to decide. Choose wisely, mud dwellers." The alien rolled up his scroll and waited for a response. He stood very straight and tried to look dangerous. His red eyes swept across the room, expecting to see fear and panic. Instead, he saw something he did not understand. Several council members were covering their mouths with their hands. Admiral Morrison had turned red in the face and was looking down at the floor. Even President Carter seemed to be fighting back a smile. The problem was that Vex Thalar's translator was not working very well. When he said Great War Fleet, it came out as Pretty Boat Club. When he said destroy your world, it sounded like redecorate your house. His threats about burning cities became warm up your neighborhoods. General Pete Collins sat next to Admiral Morrison and whispered, "Did he just threaten to give us a home makeover?" Morrison bit his lip to keep from laughing. "I think he wants to start a garden club." Dr. Hughes noticed something else interesting. Every time Vex Thalar made a claim about Zephyrian power, his head crown turned purple. In his studies of alien behavior, purple usually meant the creature was lying or stretching the truth. 10 million warships, Hughes wrote in his notes. Crown. Turns purple. Possible exaggeration. 847 star systems, he added. Crown purple again. Very likely false. Communications Officer Kate Williams sat at her station monitoring alien broadcasts. Her equipment had picked up several transmissions from Vex Thalar's ship while he was giving his speech. The messages were not encrypted, which surprised her. Most military communications used some kind of code. What she heard made her job very difficult. She had to keep a straight face while listening to what sounded like a grocery list being read by someone with a bad cold. The Zephyrian language was full of clicks and whistles, but their actual message was quite boring. Remind Emperor to take his medicine, one message said. Fleet running low on engine oil. Need to stop at next gas station. Ask Mom to send more underwear. Kate quickly wrote down everything she heard and passed the notes to General Collins. He read them and his eyes went wide. He showed the paper to Admiral Morrison, who nearly choked, trying not to laugh. President Carter stood up and cleared her throat. Ambassador Vexthalar, we thank you for traveling so far to deliver your message. The United Earth Council will need time to discuss your Emperor's proposal. We will send our response through proper diplomatic channels. The alien seemed pleased with this answer. His head crown turned bright gold, which Dr. Hughes noted probably meant satisfaction or pride. You are wise to consider our offer carefully, Vexthalar said. Do not take too long. The Emperor does not like to wait. Remember, you have one solar rotation before our fleet arrives to claim your world. He turned to leave, but tripped over his long cape. The golden scroll flew out of his hands and unrolled across the floor. Admiral Morrison could now see that the ancient imperial decree was written on what looked very much like shiny wrapping paper. As Vexthalar gathered up his scroll and hurried toward the exit, Dr. Hughes made one final note in his tablet. Subject shows signs of nervousness when questioned. Possible insecurity about actual military strength. Recommend further investigation. The chamber doors closed behind the alien ambassador. For a moment, the room was completely quiet. Then someone in the back row started giggling. Within seconds, the entire United Earth Council was laughing so hard that tears ran down their faces. President Carter banged her gavel on the table. "Order, order," she said. But she was smiling, too. "We have work to do, people. Let's find out what we're really dealing with here." Admiral Morrison wiped his eyes and stood up. "Ma'am, I think we just got threatened by the galaxy's least scary empire." The laughter started up again, and this time President Carter did not try to stop it. President Lisa Carter called an emergency meeting 2 hours after Ambassador Vexthalar left the building. The council chamber was packed with Earth's top military leaders, scientists, and intelligence officers. Everyone wanted to know what they were really dealing with. Admiral Jake Morrison walked to the front of the room carrying a thick folder. His face was serious now, but his eyes still had a hint of amusement. He placed the folder on the main table and opened it to reveal dozens of photographs and data sheets. "Ladies and gentlemen," Morrison began, "I have good news and bad news. The bad news is that the Zephyrian Empire does exist, and they do have a fleet heading our way. The good news is that we could probably defeat them with a few fishing boats and some fireworks." General Pete Collins stood up and activated the main display screen. Images of alien spacecraft appeared, but they looked nothing like the sleek warships from science fiction movies. These ships were boxy, patched with metal, plates, and seemed to be held together with something that looked like space tape. "Our deep space monitors have been tracking their fleet for the past 6 months, Collins explained. "We thought they were cargo ships or maybe refugees. Turns out they're the mighty Zephyrian war fleet. All 47 vessels of it, Dr. Ben." Hughes raised his hand. 47 ships to conquer Earth? That seems like a small number for an empire that claims to rule 800 star systems. "It gets better," Morrison said with a grin. "Our computer analysis shows that most of their ships are over 300 years old. They're using fusion drives that we abandoned 50 years ago. Their weapons appear to be modified mining lasers. And according to our scans, at least 12 of their ships are currently broken down and being towed by the others." Communications Officer Kate Williams connected her tablet to the main screen. "I've been monitoring their radio traffic since yesterday. They're not using any encryption at all. I can hear everything they say to each other." She played an audio file. The strange clicking and whistling sounds of the Zephyrian language filled The room, followed by the flat voice of the translation computer. Admiral Zix Korvac to Fleet Command. We have another engine failure on ship number 23. Request permission to stop for repairs. Also, the food replicator is making everything taste like soap again. Fleet Command to Admiral Zix Korvac. Emperor says no stops until we reach Earth. Use backup food supplies. Try not to let the crew get too hungry or they might mutiny again. The room erupted in laughter. President Carter had to bang her gavel several times to restore order. Engineer. Carl Davis stepped forward with his own tablet. While the ambassador was giving his speech, I took the liberty of scanning his ship's computer systems. Their security is about as good as their military. I was able to access their entire database in under 5 minutes. Carl's findings appeared on the main screen. Charts and graphs showed the true state of the Zephyrian Empire. Their economy was in shambles. Their military hadn't won a battle in over 200 years. Most of their conquered worlds had actually joined voluntarily because the Empire offered protection from space pirates. The best part, Carl continued, is their military budget. They spend more money on fancy uniforms and dramatic cape cleaning than they do on actual weapons. Their entire fleet operations budget is smaller than what we spend on coffee for the space station crews. Dr. Hughes reviewed the psychological profile he had compiled on Ambassador Vex Thaler. The ambassador showed classic signs of deception during his speech. His species has several tells that indicate lying. The color changes in his head crown, the way he avoided eye contact when making claims about military strength, and his nervous fidgeting all suggest he knows his threats are empty. Captain Amy Foster, commander of Earth's scout fleet, stood up. Permission to speak freely, ma'am. President Carter nodded. Go ahead, Captain. We're dealing with the galactic equivalent of playground bullies, Foster said. They've been getting by on reputation and fear for so long that they've forgotten how to actually fight. The question is, how do we respond without starting a real war? The room fell silent as everyone considered the problem. Earth had advanced weapons that could easily destroy the Zephyrian fleet, but that would make them look like the aggressors. They needed a response that would end the threat without making Earth look like the bad guys. Lieutenant Ryan Bell raised his hand. What if we don't respond with force at all? Explain, President Carter said. Well, ma'am, these aliens seem to care a lot about their reputation. What if we attacked that instead of their ships? What if we made them look so foolish that nobody in the galaxy would ever take them seriously again? Communications Officer Williams smiled. I like where this is going. We could broadcast their private conversations. Let everyone hear how unprofessional and incompetent they really are. Better yet, said Dr. Hughes, we could document everything they do wrong and share it with other species. Make it clear that the mighty Zephyrian Empire is actually a joke. Admiral Morrison walked over to the window and looked up at the stars. You know, in all my years of military service, I've learned that the best way to defeat a bully is to make everyone else see what they really are. These aliens have been fooling the galaxy for centuries. Maybe it's time someone called them out. President Carter stood up and addressed the room. I want options, people. Nonviolent options that will end this threat permanently. We're not going to start a war over this, but we're also not going to bow down to a bunch of incompetent bullies. The next few hours were spent planning Earth's response. Military experts worked with communication specialists to develop a strategy that would expose the Zephyrian Empire's weaknesses without firing a single shot. By the end of the meeting, Earth had a plan. It was unlike anything that had ever been tried in galactic politics. Instead of responding to threats with bigger threats, they would respond with something the Zephyrians had never encountered before: public humiliation on a cosmic scale. Captain, Foster summarized the plan perfectly. We're going to defeat them with embarrassment. The meeting ended with everyone feeling confident about Earth's chances. The Zephyrian Empire had made a serious mistake when they decided to threaten humanity. They were about to learn that humans had developed the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy, the ability to make anyone look foolish in front of everyone else. As the council members filed out of the chamber, Admiral Morrison turned to President Carter. "Ma'am, I have a feeling this is going to be the most entertaining war in galactic history." Carter smiled. "Let's hope it's also the shortest." 3 weeks passed before the Zephyrian fleet finally reached Earth's solar system. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, Earth's newest battleship, watching the alien ships struggle into formation through the main viewing screen. He had seen many military formations in his career, but nothing quite like this. The Zephyrian fleet looked like a collection of flying scrapyards. Their ships were different sizes and shapes, as if they had been built by completely different species. Some were long and thin like space pencils. Others were round and fat like metal balloons. A few looked like they had been cobbled together from spare parts found in a junkyard. Captain Amy Foster's voice crackled over the communication system from her scout ship, the Ranger. "Admiral, you need to see this. I'm sending you the visual. Feed from my position." Morrison's screen switched to Foster's view, which showed the alien flagship from a closer angle. The massive ship was at least twice the size of any Earth vessel, but something was clearly wrong with it. Green gas was leaking from several points along its hull, and one of its engine exhausts was flickering on and off like a broken light. "Bulb, is their flagship falling apart?" Morrison asked. "That's not even the best part, sir," Foster replied. "Watch what happens when they try to move into attack formation." Morrison watched as the Zephyrian ships attempted to arrange themselves in what appeared to be some kind of battle pattern. The first ship turned left, while the second ship turned right. They smashed into each other with a sound that could be heard even through the vacuum of space. Both ships bounced apart, spinning slowly as they tried to regain control. Lieutenant Ryan Bell, who was monitoring alien communications from his station, suddenly started laughing. "Sir, you have to hear this. I'm patching their internal communications through to the bridge speakers." The strange clicking and whistling sounds of the Zephyrian language filled the bridge, followed by the flat voice of the translation computer. "Ship 17 to Ship 22, you were supposed to turn the other way." Ship 22 to Ship 17. "Nobody told me there was another way to turn. Fleet command to all ships, please stop crashing into each other. The Emperor is watching, and he's getting angry. Ship 43 to Fleet Command, our navigation computer is showing everything upside down. Are we flying toward Earth or away from it?" Morrison had to sit down in his command chair to keep from falling over with laughter. His bridge crew was trying to stay professional, but several officers had turned away from their stations to hide their smiles. The chaos in the alien fleet continued for another hour. 2 more ships collided while trying to untangle themselves from the first accident. One ship's weapon system misfired and shot a hole in their own communications array. Another ship got lost and started flying in the wrong direction entirely. Captain Tony Mitchell, commander of Earth's defense station, contacted Morrison with an update. "Admiral, our sensors show that the alien flagship has lost main power. They're drifting and their life support systems are running on backup batteries." "Should we offer assistance?" Morrison asked, though he was still grinning. "Actually, sir, they just sent us a distress signal. But it's not asking for help with their engines. They want to know if we have any decent coffee. Apparently their food replicators can only make something that tastes like wet cardboard." Morrison authorized Foster to approach the alien flagship and offer humanitarian aid. As the Ranger drew closer to the massive vessel, Foster's crew got a better look at Zephyrian technology. What they saw was both fascinating and pathetic. The alien ship was huge, but most of its size came from empty space and unnecessary decorations. The hull was covered with gold plating and jeweled ornaments that served no practical purpose. The weapon systems looked impressive from a distance, but up close they were clearly outdated mining equipment painted to look military. "Admiral," Foster reported, "I'm seeing at least 50 different design flaws just on the outer hull. Their armor plating is installed backwards on the port side. Their sensor array is pointing the wrong direction. And unless I'm mistaken, they've got their main engines mounted upside down." Dr. Ben Hughes, who was monitoring the situation from Earth, provided additional analysis. The Zephyrian approach to engineering appears to be, if it looks scary, it must work well. They've prioritized appearance over function for so long that they've forgotten how to build anything properly. The situation became even more embarrassing when the Zephyrians attempted to broadcast their final ultimatum to Earth. Admiral Zix Korvac, the fleet commander, appeared on screens across human space. He was a smaller version of Ambassador Vex Thalar, with the same crystalline blue skin and pointed head crown. But his uniform was wrinkled, and he had what appeared to be food stains on his chest. "People of Earth," Zix Korvac began, reading from a script, "you have ignored our generous offer of surrender. Now you will face the full might of the Zephyrian war machine. Prepare to be destroyed by our unstoppable fleet of doom." Unfortunately for Zix Korvac, his timing was terrible. Just as he finished his threatening speech, his flagship's lights went out completely. The transmission continued in darkness while crew members could be heard arguing in the background. "Who forgot to pay the power bill?" "I thought you were handling." "The power bill!" "Well, I thought the Emperor was handling the power bill. The Emperor doesn't handle bills, he's the Emperor." Lieutenant Bell was recording everything for later analysis. "Sir, this is better than any comedy show I've ever seen. Should I keep recording?" "Absolutely," Morrison replied. "This is going in the history books." The Zephyrian fleet spent the rest of the day trying to get organized for their attack on Earth. They managed to get their flagship's power restored, but only after 3 more ships collided while bringing spare parts. Their attempt to test their weapons resulted in one ship accidentally shooting itself in the engine, and another ship's laser array exploded during calibration. By the end of the day, the mighty Zephyrian armada looked more like a floating disaster than a military threat. Half their ships were damaged, their flagship was listing to one side, and their admiral had been forced to call his mother for technical support because none of his engineers knew how to fix anything. Morrison called an emergency meeting with Earth's military leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we need to worry about this invasion. At the rate they're going, they'll defeat themselves before we have to fire a single shot." The meeting was brief, and the conclusion was unanimous. Earth would continue to monitor the situation, offer humanitarian aid if requested, and document everything for what was sure to be the most entertaining military disaster in galactic history. Morrison returned to his bridge. He couldn't help but feel a little sorry for the Zephyrians. They had traveled across the galaxy to threaten Earth, only to prove that they were the least threatening invasion force anyone had ever seen. Earth's response to the Zephyrian invasion began not with missiles or laser cannons, but with something far more dangerous: a smartphone and a social media account. Tech specialist Jenna Clark sat in her small office at Earth Defense Command, uploading the first video that would change galactic history forever. The video was simple but devastating. Jenna had taken all the footage of the Zephyrian fleet's disasters and edited it together with upbeat circus music. She called it "Galaxy's Worst Space Fleet Tries to Invade Earth." The 3-minute compilation showed every collision, every malfunction, and every embarrassing moment from the alien armada's arrival. Within the first hour, the video had 10 million views. By the end of the day, it had reached 5 billion. The galactic internet, which connected thousands of different species across hundreds of worlds, had never seen anything spread so quickly. Dr. Sam Porter, Earth's military psychologist, watched the view counter climb with fascination. "This is unprecedented," he told President Lisa Carter during their emergency video call. "We're witnessing the first case of viral embarrassment on a galactic scale. The Zephyrians built their entire empire on fear and reputation. We're destroying that reputation faster than they can respond to it." Comments poured in from across the galaxy in dozens of different languages. The translation software worked overtime to convert alien thoughts into readable text. "Is this real?" wrote someone from the Centauri system. "I thought the Zephyrians were supposed to be scary. My pet space hamster could organize a better invasion," commented a user from the Vega colonies. "I've been paying tribute to these clowns for 50 years, posted an angry alien from the Outer Rim territories. But Jenna's video was just the beginning. Communications officer Kate Williams had been busy recording every Zephyrian radio transmission since their fleet arrived. She created a podcast called Overheard in Space that featured the most ridiculous conversations from the alien ships. The most popular episode was called Admiral Calls His Mom. It featured the complete conversation between Admiral Zix Korvac and his mother back on the Zephyrian homeworld. The translation made it even funnier. "Hello, Mother. Yes, we made it to Earth safely. Well, mostly safely. We only lost 3 ships on the way. Did you remember to pack extra underwear like I told you? Mother, I'm trying to conduct a military invasion here. That's no excuse for poor hygiene, dear. Are you eating your vegetables? We don't have vegetables, Mother. We have military rations. Those things will kill you faster than any human weapon. I'm sending care packages." Lieutenant Ryan Bell, who had been monitoring alien communications, made another discovery that changed everything. The Zephyrians were not just incompetent. They were broadcasting their military plans in the clear for anyone to hear. "They're going to attempt a coordinated attack tomorrow at 0800 hours, Bell reported to Admiral Morrison. "Their strategy is to surround Earth and demand surrender. The problem is, they've been discussing their entire battle plan on open channels for the past 6 hours. Morrison shook his head in disbelief. "Do they know that we can hear everything they're saying?" "I don't think so, sir. They seem to believe that their language is too complicated for other species to understand. They don't realize we have translation, computers." Earth's response team decided to take their psychological warfare to the next level. Captain Tony Mitchell suggested they start a live stream of the Zephyrian fleet with running commentary, like a sports broadcast. The Earth Defense Network went live the next morning, just in time for the aliens' planned attack. Mitchell provided play-by-play commentary, while Dr. Hughes offered expert analysis of Zephyrian behavior. "Good morning, Galaxy, and welcome to what promises to be the most entertaining military disaster in recorded history," Mitchell began as thousands of viewers tuned in from across known space. "The Zephyrian fleet is beginning their attack formation," Dr. Hughes explained. "Notice how Ship 12 is turning the wrong direction again, and there's Ship 25, still flying backwards because nobody told the pilot he installed his navigation system upside down." The live-stream audience grew by the minute as word spread through galactic social networks. Aliens from species that had never heard of Earth before were suddenly watching humans provide commentary on the worst invasion attempt in galactic history. The actual attack was even more pathetic than anyone expected. The Zephyrians tried to surround Earth, but half their ships got lost on the way to their positions. The ones that did reach their assigned locations immediately started arguing about who was supposed to be where. Ship 34 accidentally flew into Earth's atmosphere and had to make an emergency landing in the Pacific Ocean. The pilot sent a distress signal asking for directions to the nearest gas station and a tow truck. Meanwhile, the flagship's weapon systems failed again when Admiral Zix Korvac tried to fire a warning shot. Instead of a powerful laser beam, the gun produced a small puff of purple smoke and a sound like a deflating balloon. "Oh dear," Dr. Hughes commented on the live stream. "It appears their main weapon is broken. The Admiral is now hitting the control panel with what looks like a space wrench." The audience response was immediate and brutal. Comments flooded in faster than the translation software could keep up. "My grandmother could invade better than this, and she's been dead for 40 years. Are we sure these aren't just comedy actors pretending to be an invasion force? I used to be afraid of the Zephyrian Empire. Now I feel sorry for them." But the real damage was happening on other worlds throughout the galaxy. Species that had been paying tribute to the Zephyrian Empire for centuries suddenly realized they had been intimidated by incompetent fools. Rebellion broke out on 12 different worlds within hours of the live stream going viral. The Zephyrian stock market crashed when investors realized their military was worthless. Their currency became so devalued that it was worth less than the paper it was printed on. Several major trading partners canceled contracts and demanded refunds for decades of protection money. President Carter watched the galactic chaos unfold from her office in Geneva. "We've started something we can't control," she told Admiral Morrison during their secure video call. "Is that a bad thing?" Morrison asked. "These bullies have been terrorizing the galaxy for centuries. Maybe it's time someone stood up to them." Carter nodded. "I just hope we're ready for whatever comes next. We've humiliated the Zephyrian Empire in front of the entire galaxy. They're not going to take this lying down." Morrison smiled grimly. "Ma'am, after what we've seen of their military capabilities, I'm not sure they could take anything lying down, standing up, or in any other position." The day ended with Earth's social media campaign having reached over 100 billion views across 50 different species. The Zephyrian Empire's reputation was in ruins. Their economy was collapsing, and their military was the laughingstock of the galaxy. And this was only the beginning. The collapse of the Zephyrian Empire's reputation spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Within 3 days of Earth's social media campaign, 12 different alien species had declared independence from Zephyrian rule. The Andromedans were the first to act, followed quickly by the trading guilds of the Outer Rim territories. Ambassador Vex Thaler sat in his temporary quarters at the Earth Embassy, staring at reports streaming in from across Zephyrian space. His crystalline blue skin had turned a pale gray color, which Dr. Ben Hughes had learned indicated extreme stress in his species. The ambassador's fancy cape lay crumpled in a corner, and his once proud uniform was wrinkled and stained. "This is a disaster," Vex Thaler muttered to himself, not realizing his translator was still active and broadcasting his words to Earth's communication center. "The Emperor is going to have me executed. The military is falling apart. Half our fleet is asking for asylum on Earth rather than going home." President Lisa Carter knocked on the ambassador's door and entered with a tea service. She had decided that treating the alien diplomat with kindness might help solve the crisis peacefully. Vex Thaler looked up at her with his large red eyes, which were now dim and tired. "President Carter," he said sadly, "I owe you an apology. I came here to threaten your world. But I see now that we are the ones in danger. My people have been living a lie for so long that we forgot it was not real." Carter sat down across from the dejected alien and poured 2 cups of tea. "Tell me about your empire, Ambassador. What was it really like before all this started?" Vex Thaler accepted the tea gratefully and began to speak. His story was both sad and ridiculous. The Zephyrian Empire had once been a legitimate power, but that was over 400 years ago. Since then, they had survived entirely on reputation and bluffing. No one had ever called their bluff before. "We have not won a real battle in 3 centuries, Vex Thaler admitted. "Our military exists only to look impressive at parades. Our weapons are so old that most of them do not work anymore. We spend all our money on fancy uniforms and gold decorations because we thought appearance was more important than substance." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other alien civilizations were learning the truth about Zephyrian power. The Centauri Federation had always paid tribute to avoid Zephyrian attacks, but now they realized those attacks had never been a real threat. They immediately stopped all payments and demanded refunds for the past century. Captain Amy Foster was still monitoring the Zephyrian fleet from her scout ship when she received an unexpected communication. It was not from Earth or from the alien command structure. It was from individual Zephyrian soldiers who wanted to defect. "Earthship, this is crew member Vix Tolan from Zephyrian Vessel 41, the message began. "We formally request political asylum. We are tired of serving in a military that does not work. We want to learn how to fix things properly, instead of just making them look scary." Similar messages came from 17 other Zephyrian ships. The soldiers were abandoning their posts and asking Earth for help. They had watched human engineering teams repair their flagship's power systems in 2 hours, something their own technicians had been unable to do in 6 months. Colonel Susan Wright led the humanitarian mission to assist the stranded aliens. Her engineering team was amazed by what they found aboard the Zephyrian vessels. Every system was installed incorrectly, either by accident or to make it look more impressive. "Their main computer is running upside down," reported Chief Engineer Mark Johnson. "Their life support system is connected backwards. Their navigation computer is programmed with star charts that are 300 years out of date. It's amazing these ships can fly at all." Wright's team began teaching Zephyrian crew members how to properly maintain their equipment. The aliens were eager students, frustrated by centuries of incompetent leadership that had forbidden them from learning real technical skills. The political situation became even more complicated when other galactic powers realized what was happening. The Vega Collective, which had been neutral in most conflicts, suddenly announced they were filing legal charges against the Zephyrian Empire for centuries of fraud and extortion. "They have been collecting protection money from us for 200 years, announced Vega Prime Minister Shul Nethys during a galactic broadcast. "They promised to defend us from pirates and invaders. Now we learn that they could not defend themselves from a flock of space chickens." Dr. Sam Porter watched the galactic political situation unfold from his office at Earth Defense Command. He had never seen anything like it in his studies of interstellar relations. The fall of the Zephyrian Empire was creating a power vacuum that could lead to chaos across dozens of star systems. "We need to be careful," Porter warned President Carter during their daily briefing. "When a major power collapses this quickly, it usually leads to wars as other species try to grab territory and resources. We may have solved one problem only to create a dozen others." Carter understood the concern, but she also saw an opportunity. Earth was in a unique position to help stabilize the situation. They had the technology and knowledge that could help rebuild the collapsing empire into something better. The breakthrough came when Emperor Zix Morthak himself sent a personal message to Earth. The supreme ruler of the Zephyrian Empire appeared, on screen looking nothing like the terrifying dictator his propaganda had portrayed. He was a small, elderly alien who looked tired and confused. "People of Earth," the Emperor began, "I am writing to request your assistance. My advisors have lied to me for decades about the strength of our military and the loyalty of our subjects. I have just learned that most of our empire exists only on paper. Our treasury is empty. Our military cannot fight. Our technology is centuries behind yours." The Emperor's message continued with a proposal that surprised everyone. He wanted to abdicate his throne and ask Earth to help rebuild Zephyrian civilization from the ground up. He realized that his empire had become a joke, and he would rather see it transformed into something useful than watch it continue to embarrass itself. Admiral Morrison brought the Emperor's message to the Emergency Council meeting that afternoon. The room buzzed with discussion as Earth's leaders debated how to respond to this unprecedented situation. "We came into this crisis trying to avoid a war," Morrison observed. "Now we're being asked to rebuild an entire civilization. This is way beyond anything we prepared for." General Pete Collins raised a practical concern. "Do we even have the resources to help them? We're talking about hundreds of worlds and billions of alien citizens. That's a massive undertaking." Dr. Hughes offered a different perspective. "Maybe we don't need to rebuild their empire. Maybe we can help them build something completely new, something based on cooperation instead of intimidation." The debate continued late into the evening, but the conclusion was unanimous. Earth would help the Zephyrians not because they had to, but because it was the right thing to do. They had destroyed the old empire with mockery and social media. Now they would help build something better in its place. President Carter drafted Earth's response to Emperor Zix Morthak personally. It was short, simple, and would change the course of galactic history. "Your Majesty, we accept your request for assistance. Earth is prepared to help you build a new kind of civilization, one based on competence, honesty, and mutual respect. We believe that former enemies can become the best of friends if they are willing to laugh at their past mistakes and work together toward a better future." The news of Earth's agreement to help rebuild Zephyrian civilization spread across the galaxy within hours. Other alien species watched with fascination and concern as the humans prepared to take on the massive task of reforming a failed empire. Many wondered if Earth knew what it was getting into. Reporter Alex Johnson became the galaxy's most watched journalist as he covered the unprecedented story. His daily broadcasts from Earth Defense Command reached billions of viewers across hundreds of worlds. Everyone wanted to know how the humans planned to fix a civilization that had been broken for centuries. This is Alex Johnson reporting from Geneva, where President Carter has just announced the formation of the Galactic Reconstruction Project, he said during his morning broadcast. Earth will send teams of engineers, teachers, and advisors to help former Zephyrian worlds transition to new forms of government. The project is expected to take at least 10 years and will cost trillions of credits. The first challenge came from an unexpected source. The Rigel Consortium, a powerful trading organization, filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Court of Justice. They argued that Earth had no right to interfere in Zephyrian affairs and that the reconstruction project was actually a human invasion disguised as humanitarian aid. The humans destroyed the Zephyrian Empire with their cruel mockery, declared Consortium President Vel Korax during a heated court session. Now they want to replace it with their own puppet government. This is conquest by humiliation instead of conquest by force. President Carter had to travel to the neutral world of Nexus Prime to defend Earth's actions before the Galactic Court. She brought video evidence of everything that had happened, from the original Zephyrian threats to their military disasters to the Emperor's personal request for help. "We did not seek this conflict," Carter explained to the panel of alien judges. "The Zephyrian Empire threatened to destroy our world. We responded by showing the galaxy what they really were. When their empire collapsed under the weight of its own lies, their emperor asked us for help. We are simply answering that call." The court sessions were broadcast live across the galaxy, creating the most watched legal proceedings in interstellar history. Public opinion was divided. Some species supported Earth's actions, while others worried about human expansion into Zephyrian space. Dr. Nina Green, Earth's top cultural anthropologist, was called as an expert witness. She had spent months studying Zephyrian society and culture, trying to understand how an entire civilization could live such an elaborate lie for so long. "The Zephyrian people are not evil," Dr. Green testified. "They are victims of their own government's deception. For generations, they have been told they were part of a mighty empire, when in reality they were living in a house of cards. The collapse was inevitable. Earth simply provided the wind that knocked it down." Her testimony included recordings of interviews with defecting Zephyrian soldiers and civilians. Their stories painted a picture of a society built on fear and false pride, where no one was allowed to question the official version of reality. "I spent my entire military career polishing weapons that did not work," said former Zephyrian captain Zix Vorthak during one recorded interview. "We were told that asking questions about equipment failures was treason. We were taught that looking incompetent was better than admitting we were incompetent." The most dramatic moment in the court proceedings came when Emperor Zix Vorthak himself appeared via hologram to testify on Earth's behalf. The former ruler of 800 worlds looked small and frail as he stood before the galactic judges. "I ruled an empire that existed only in my imagination," the emperor admitted. "My advisors lied to me about everything because they were afraid to tell the truth. My military was worthless because we cared more about looking powerful than being powerful. Earth showed the galaxy what we really were, and for that, I am grateful." The emperor's testimony was devastating to Earth's critics. Here was the former head of the Zephyrian Empire himself, stating that Earth had done nothing wrong. The humans had simply revealed the truth about a government built on lies. While the court case continued, Earth's reconstruction teams were already at work throughout former Zephyrian space. Captain Tony Mitchell led the first mission to the Zephyrian homeworld, where he found a population eager for change but confused about how to achieve it. The people here have been living under authoritarian rule for so long that they've forgotten how to make decisions for themselves, Mitchell reported back to Earth. They keep asking us what they're allowed to do, as if everything requires permission from some distant authority. Engineer Carl Davis was amazed by what he found on Zephyrian worlds. The technology was not just outdated, it was actively harmful. Environmental systems were failing, infrastructure was crumbling, and basic services like power and water were unreliable. They've been covering up systemic failures for decades, Davis explained during a video conference with Earth Command. Instead of fixing problems, they just painted over them or hung curtains to hide them. Some cities haven't had reliable power in 50 years, but the government kept reporting that everything was perfect. The reconstruction work revealed the true scope of Zephyrian deception. Worlds that were supposed to be thriving industrial centers were actually environmental disasters. Military bases that looked impressive from orbit were empty shells with no working equipment. The Empire's claimed population of billions was actually closer to several hundred million, spread thinly across worlds that could barely support life. But there were also positive discoveries. The Zephyrian people themselves were intelligent, resourceful, and eager to learn. Once they understood that they were allowed to ask questions and suggest improvements, they threw themselves into the reconstruction effort with enthusiasm. Former Ambassador Vex Thalar had become an unexpected asset in the reconstruction process. His dramatic personality, which had made him seem ridiculous during his threats to Earth, actually made him an excellent public speaker for explaining the changes to his people. "My fellow Zephyrians," he said during a broadcast to the home world, "we have lived in darkness for too long. The humans have not conquered us. They have freed us from our own lies. It is time to build something real instead of something that only looks real." The Galactic Court of Justice finally reached its decision. After 3 months of testimony and deliberation, by a vote of 7-2, they ruled that Earth's actions were justified and that the reconstruction project could continue. Chief Justice Kel Morvain read the court's opinion to a packed courtroom and a galactic audience of billions. The court finds that the Zephyrian Empire was a fraudulent organization that maintained power through deception and intimidation. Earth's actions, while unconventional, were a legitimate response to threats made against their world. The reconstruction project represents a genuine effort to help the Zephyrian people build a better society. The ruling was celebrated on Earth and throughout former Zephyrian space, but it also created new challenges. With legal approval for the reconstruction project, Earth now had the full responsibility for helping hundreds of worlds transition to new forms of government and society. President Carter addressed the Earth Council after the court decision was announced. "We started this journey trying to avoid a war with an alien empire. Now we find ourselves helping to build a new kind of civilization. It won't be easy, but I believe it will be worth it." Admiral Morrison, who had been watching the Zephyrian fleet when everything started, marveled at how much had changed. 6 months ago, we were worried about being invaded. Now we're the guardians of galactic peace. Sometimes I wonder if we knew what we were getting into when we decided to fight back with jokes instead of weapons. The answer to that question would determine the future of not just the former Zephyrian Empire, but of the entire galaxy. 1 year after the collapse of the Zephyrian Empire, something unexpected happened that changed everything once again. Emperor Zix Morthak, who had been living quietly on Earth while his former empire was rebuilt, discovered he had a talent that no one could have predicted. He was naturally funny. It started by accident during a public meeting about reconstruction progress. The former emperor was trying to explain how badly his government had managed things when he said, "We were so incompetent that we once declared war on our own moon because we forgot it belonged to us." The audience burst into laughter. Dr. Ben Hughes, who was monitoring Zephyrian behavior patterns, noticed that the emperor's head crown turned bright gold when people laughed at his jokes. This was the first time Hughes had seen a Zephyrian display the color associated with genuine happiness. Captain Frank Stone, who had been working closely with former Zephyrian officials, suggested that the Emperor try performing at the weekly comedy night that Earth personnel had established at their base on the Zephyrian homeworld. What happened next surprised everyone. The Emperor was a natural comedian. His stories about the ridiculous things he had done as a ruler had audiences rolling with laughter. His impression of himself trying to look intimidating while having no idea what he was doing became legendary throughout the Reconstruction Zone. "I once ordered our military to prepare for a great battle," the Emperor said during one performance. "They spent 6 months polishing their armor and practicing their scary faces. Then I forgot what we were supposed to be fighting about. So we held a parade instead and pretended it was a victory celebration." Word of the Emperor's comedy performances spread across the galaxy through social media, the same networks that had destroyed his empire. But this time, the response was completely different. Instead of mockery, people were sharing videos because they genuinely enjoyed watching the former dictator make fun of himself. Ambassador Vex Thalar, who had become Earth's liaison with former Zephyrian worlds, found his own calling in an unexpected place. His dramatic personality and loud voice made him perfect for hosting cultural exchange events. He organized festivals where different alien species could share their traditions and learn from each other. "People of the galaxy," Vex Thalar announced during the first interspecies cultural festival, "we have learned that it is better to laugh together than to threaten each other. Today we celebrate not the fear that divided us, but the friendship that unites us." The festival was held on the neutral world of Harmony Station and attracted visitors from over 40 different species. Humans taught aliens how to play baseball. Zephyrians demonstrated their traditional crystal singing. The Andromedans shared their famous spicy food that made everyone cry tears of joy. Private Kelly Ross, who had been part of the first Reconstruction team, made a discovery that explained a lot about Zephyrian culture. While exploring old government archives, she found records showing that the Zephyrian Empire's entire governmental structure was based on a misunderstood human television show. They received broadcasts of an old Earth sitcom called Galaxy Command about 500 years ago, Ross reported to her superior officers. They thought it was a documentary about how to run a space empire. Their entire legal system, military hierarchy, and diplomatic protocols were copied from comedy scripts. This discovery explained why Zephyrian government had always seemed so ridiculous to other species. They had been unknowingly acting out comedy sketches for centuries, believing they were following serious governmental procedures. Dr. Nina Green studied the cultural implications of this discovery. "The Zephyrians took our fiction and made it their reality," she explained to a fascinated galactic audience during a research presentation. "They've been living in a comedy show without realizing it was supposed to be funny." The Reconstruction Project faced its biggest challenge when several former Zephyrian worlds declared they wanted to form their own independent governments instead of joining the new democratic federation that Earth was helping to establish. The ice planet Zix-7 announced it wanted to become a monarchy again, while Zix-12 declared itself a corporate state run by trading companies. Captain Amy Foster was sent to mediate the disputes. She found that the different worlds had developed their own interpretations of what freedom meant after centuries of authoritarian rule. Some wanted strong leaders, others wanted no leaders at all, and a few wanted to go back to the old empire system because it was familiar. "Democracy is hard work," Foster explained during a planetary assembly on Zix-7. "It requires people to make decisions and take responsibility for the consequences. Dictatorship is easier because someone else makes all the choices for you. But we've seen where that leads." The solution came from an unexpected source. Former Emperor Zix Morthak suggested that each world should be allowed to choose its own government system, as long as they agreed to basic principles like not threatening their neighbors and treating their citizens fairly. I spent centuries forcing people to live under one system, the Emperor said during a galactic broadcast. Maybe the secret to good government is letting people choose for themselves what works best for them. This idea became known as the Zephyrian Accords, a treaty that established basic rights and responsibilities for all former Empire worlds while allowing them to develop their own unique political systems. Some worlds chose democracy, others preferred council-based governments, and a few experimented with completely new ideas. The most successful experiment was on the world of New Zephyr, where they established a government based on merit and competence, rather than tradition or popularity. Citizens could vote for leaders, but only after those leaders had proven they could actually do the job through practical tests and demonstrations. Lieutenant Ryan Bell, who had been monitoring communications throughout the reconstruction, noticed something remarkable happening. The various Zephyrian worlds were starting to help each other voluntarily. When Zix 4 had a crop failure, Zix 9 sent food supplies without being asked. When Zix 15 needed technical expertise, 3 other worlds sent their best engineers. They're building the kind of cooperative empire they always claimed to have, Bell observed. But this time it's real instead of just propaganda. The transformation was not without problems. Some former Zephyrian officials tried to restart the old empire system, and a few worlds experienced political instability as they learned how to govern themselves. But the overall trend was positive, with most former empire worlds developing stable, functional governments for the first time in centuries. President Lisa Carter visited the Zephyrian homeworld 2 years after the reconstruction began. She was amazed by the changes she saw. Cities that had been crumbling were now clean and efficient. Technology that had been broken for decades was working properly. Most importantly, the people seemed happy and confident instead of fearful and confused. "We came here expecting to find enemies," Carter said during her speech to the new Zephyrian assembly. "Instead, we found friends we didn't know we had. You have shown the galaxy that it's possible to start over and build something better from the ruins of something that didn't work." The Emperor, now known simply as Zix because he had given up his royal titles, had become one of the galaxy's most popular entertainers. His comedy shows were broadcast to hundreds of worlds, and his message was always the same. It's okay to admit when you're wrong, and it's never too late to try again. "I was the worst emperor in galactic history," Zix said during one of his performances, "but I might just be an okay comedian. Sometimes the things we're bad at teach us what we're good at." The success of the Zephyrian Reconstruction Project had implications far beyond the former Empire worlds. Other species began adopting Earth's approach to conflict resolution, using humor and embarrassment instead of violence to deal with bullies and aggressors. The galaxy was becoming a more peaceful place, one laugh at a time. 5 years after the Zephyrian Empire's collapse, the galaxy was celebrating the first annual Galactic Comedy Festival. The event was held on Harmony Station, a massive space platform that had been built specifically for interspecies gatherings. Representatives from over 200 different worlds had come to participate in what had grown into the largest peaceful gathering in galactic history. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the main observation deck, watching ships from dozens of different species dock at the station. He remembered the day when 47 broken Zephyrian warships had limped into Earth's solar system with threats of destruction. Now, those same ships, completely rebuilt and properly functioning, were arriving with delegations of comedians, musicians, and cultural ambassadors. "Hard to believe it all started with a bad translator and some circus music," Morrison said to Captain Amy Foster, who had joined him at the viewing window. Foster smiled as she watched a group of young Zephyrians, teaching human children how to sing in harmonious crystal tones. Sometimes the best solutions are the ones nobody sees coming. The festival's opening ceremony was hosted by former Emperor Zix, who had become one of the galaxy's most beloved entertainers. He took the stage wearing a simple blue jumpsuit instead of his old royal robes and his head crown had been replaced with a small hat that said Galaxy's Worst Former Dictator in 12 different languages. "Welcome, friends, to our celebration of the most powerful force in the universe," Zix began his opening speech. "Not gravity, not nuclear fusion, not even the mysterious dark matter that holds galaxies together. I'm talking about laughter, the force that can bring down empires and build up friendships." The audience of thousands of aliens from hundreds of different worlds applauded enthusiastically. Many of them had lived under fear of the Zephyrian Empire for their entire lives. Now, they were cheering for its former ruler as he made jokes about his own incompetence. "5 years ago, I was the most feared leader in the galaxy," Zix continued. "Turns out, I was only feared because nobody had bothered to look closely at what I was actually doing. The humans looked, and what they saw was so ridiculous that they couldn't help but laugh. That laughter brought down an empire, but it also set billions of people free." Dr. Ben Hughes, now director of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program, presented the festival's main research findings. His team had been studying the effects of humor on interspecies relations, and their results were remarkable. "We have documented a 73% decrease in military conflicts between species that participate in regular comedy exchanges," Hughes reported. "Apparently, it's very difficult to start a war with someone after you've seen them slip on a banana peel." The festival featured performances from comedians of every species. The Andromedans told jokes that required 3 heads to understand properly. The Centaurians performed physical comedy using their ability to change colors. Even the usually serious Vega Collective had sent a delegation of satirists who specialized in making fun of bureaucratic procedures. But the most popular act was the reunion performance by Ambassador Vex Thaler and former Emperor Zix. They had developed a comedy routine based on their old diplomatic meetings, with Vex Thaler playing his former pompous self, while Zix played a confused emperor who had no idea what was going on. "Your Majesty," Vex Thaler said in his most dramatic voice, "I bring grave news from the Outer Rim territories. The humans have responded to our ultimatum." "Excellent," Zix replied, looking pleased. "Did they surrender?" "No, Your Majesty. They sent us a gift basket with a note that says, 'Thanks for the laughs.'" "How thoughtful." "What kind of gift basket?" "It contains repair manuals for all our broken ships, a cookbook for food that doesn't taste like cardboard, and a DVD collection of something called Galaxy's Funniest Home Videos." The audience roared with laughter, as the 2 former enemies acted out exaggerated versions of their past mistakes. Their routine had become so popular that they were planning a galaxy-wide tour to spread their message of friendship and self-deprecating humor. Captain Tony Mitchell, who was now director of the Reconstruction Monitoring Program, presented his final report on the former Zephyrian territories. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. "Every former Empire world has achieved stable government," Mitchell announced. "Crime rates are down 60%. Economic productivity is up 80%. Most importantly, citizen satisfaction surveys show the highest happiness levels in recorded Zephyrian history." The success of the Reconstruction had inspired other species to examine their own governments and societies. The Rigel Consortium, which had initially opposed Earth's involvement, had reformed their entire economic system after realizing that their trading practices were almost as corrupt as the old Zephyrian Empire. President Lisa Carter, now in her 2nd term, gave the festival's closing address. She spoke about how the crisis that had started with threats and fear had transformed into an opportunity for unprecedented cooperation and friendship. "We learned something important during this experience," Carter said. "The best way to defeat an enemy is not to destroy them, but to help them become a friend. The Zephyrian Empire was built on lies and maintained through fear. When we shone light on those lies, the empire collapsed. But we didn't stop there. We helped build something better in its place. The festival concluded with the signing of the Galactic Friendship Accords, a treaty that established comedy and cultural exchange as official diplomatic tools. Over 150 different species signed the agreement, creating the largest peaceful alliance in galactic history. Former Ambassador Vex Thalar, now serving as the first Director General of Galactic Cultural Affairs, read the treaty's main principles aloud. We, the species of the galaxy, agree that laughter is stronger than fear, that friendship is more valuable than conquest, and that the best way to solve problems is to work together rather than fight each other. As the festival ended and delegates prepared to return to their home worlds, something remarkable happened. The various species began making plans to visit each other, not for trade negotiations or military discussions, but simply to share jokes and learn about different cultures. Admiral Morrison watched the departing ships from the observation deck one final time. Each vessel carried not just passengers, but also cultural ambassadors, comedy troupes, and friendship delegations. The galaxy was becoming more connected than ever before, but through bonds of humor and mutual respect rather than conquest and fear. Dr. Nina Green, who had become the galaxy's leading expert on peaceful conflict resolution, summarized the entire experience in her final research paper. The Zephyrian crisis proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon is not a gun or a bomb, but a good joke shared at exactly the right moment. The crisis that had started with an incompetent invasion had ended with the creation of a new kind of galactic community. The Zephyrian Empire had challenged humanity with threats of destruction. Humanity had responded with mockery and laughter. In the end, both species had won something far more valuable than military victory. They had won friendship, understanding, and the knowledge that even the worst enemies could become the best of friends if they were willing to laugh at themselves. As the lights dimmed on Harmony Station and the last ships departed for home, the galaxy was a more peaceful place than it had been in centuries. And it all started because one species decided that the best response to bullying was not fear, but laughter. The Zephyrian Empire was gone forever, but the Zephyrian people had found something better, a place in a galaxy where being different was celebrated, where making mistakes was forgiven, and where the sound of laughter was more common than the sound of weapons. Sometimes the best victories are the ones where everybody wins.